Have you ever wondered what it takes to cultivate and develop your psychic ability? If so, you're going to want to stick around for this episode because we're going to share all of our tips and tricks on developing your intuition and the story that led me to become a professional psychic medium. Hey, we're Brit and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we've found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. Okay, so I've always been into like the woo-woo, witchy, like the craft and teen witch and all those type of stories and whatnot. I was definitely interested my whole life growing up, but I lived in a really small country town and we grew up Christian, and so it wasn't really a widely practiced thing in my house. But it wasn't until Chris's friend, which was an unlikely friend to recommend this, said to me, "Hey Brit, you should watch Long Island Medium." And I remember thinking in that moment, well, that was weird. Like, why would he recommend that? One, I don't really watch a lot of TV. Why would he, like, what was that? But it was one of those really weird, intuitive moments that I felt like I'm supposed to follow this.
And it's always interesting because I feel like a lot of people, a lot of times, are pointing you in specific directions. You're like always getting those nudges and those opportunities. And that really, when you're thinking about psychic abilities and like what that, a lot of us are going to think of like Miss Cleo, right? And she's like reading into her reading into her crystal ball. And truthfully, so much about when people talk about psychic is really just your intuition. It's you picking up on perceived messages that you have, and it's amazing how when you practice something and when you really focus on it's something that you want, you start to get better and better at it. I mean, it's like everything, and so much of the psychic stuff and so much of the woo-woo stuff is really about listening to yourself. And a lot of people get hung up on like some sort of like advanced ability, like you're going to fortune tell, or, you're going to be able to levitate or do these kind of like
pick the lottery numbers.
Yeah, really crazy things, but so often it's so much more simple than that. It's thinking about a friend and then having them call you. It's like putting out something that's happening that's non-physical. When I think about psychic, I always think about something that's more non-physical.
Like metaphysical.
Yeah, that really turns up in your reality later on. It's like, man, I knew that was going to be the way that happened, or I knew I was going to meet a person today that was going to be really awesome, or just it's something where you knew it, but it sort of defied whatever normal reasoning you have.
So we watch Long Island Medium, and by the end of it, Chris looks over at me and tears are streaming down my face, and he's like, "Babe, we can't watch this anymore. You're just crying." And I looked at him and I said, "I want to do this for people." And it was a really weird moment. It was one of those other intuitive, weird moments where you're like, who said that? What is this? And shortly after that, I found myself in a float tank. And if you've ever been in a sensory deprivation tank, it is beyond powerful. It took me a few times to get comfortable with the experience. So the first time, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is miraculous. I felt relaxed and all the physical benefits were there. But on a deeper internal, like mental level, I wasn't able to access deeper states of my thinking because I had never really turned my thinking off before. And that's something that you'll come to find when dealing with your intuition. It's on a different level than your thinking brain. You have to be in a relaxed state to receive the intuitive information. And so in this relaxed state inside the float tank, for the first time in a long time, I heard my biological father's voice say to me, and this is from the other side because he passed in 2008. He said to me, "Hey, baby girl, I had to pass in the physical world so I could guide you from the spiritual world." And that was it. That was the only message I heard, but it was enough to get me motivated to actually learn what the hell just happened and how do I do that more.
it was so wild for me to watch, or to turn at the end of that Long Island Medium episode and to look over at Brit and see her crying, which I was not expecting. Like, what kind of TV is this? And then for her to say, like, hey, I want to do this. I'm interested in doing this in the same way Teresa does, which she, meets with people and talks to their past loved ones. And it's like this massively healing experience, because a lot of people have regrets, or they didn't get to say that, like, I love you, or they left on an angry note, or it's a parent with a child that they've lost. And so it's like all this real deep healing. And I immediately thought, this is nonsense. Like, what do you mean you want to do this for people? Like, this is crazy. And then when she had the experience happen in the float tank, and she comes out and she's crying and she's talking about hearing her deceased father talk to her, I knew there was going to be something else, because Brit has never been a person to make up stories. So she's always been super authentic about everything. Definitely to a fault. And for her to come out crying and telling me about this experience that I know she hadn't made up, I was like, well, I'm intrigued now, because now you have me interested. And it started off then. We knew that she was able to access something else, or something was able to happen for her that we didn't understand, but that we knew required deep relaxation. And a lot of people want to be excited about this kind of work, or like, oh, I'm really pumped about doing this. And that excited mentality won't get you there. You have to be so damn deeply relaxed. When you're in a float tank, you have to remember there's nothing to look at. It's pitch black. You're suspended in Epsom salt water, and you're buoyant. So your body's just floating there. The water is heated to the same temperature as your body, and you can't hear anything. Nothing's going on. And so your brain eventually shuts off because it's bored. There's no new content, so there's nothing for it to filter through. And eventually you will start to slow your thoughts down enough to begin to access different states. If you listen to our podcast about hypnosis, all I talked about was changing in between states. And there are some brainwave states that allow you to make transformations very fast. Well, what we were finding out here, and that I didn't know despite the fact that I'd been doing hypnosis at this point for a while now.
Well, this was all at the same time of the mountain trip where we almost died. Me going to see the psychic who said, buy yourself some tarot cards, honey, you have the gift. And I'm like, what is going on here? It was all in the same time frame, the same 2012 year.
A lot of it was us wanting new change in our lives. And we talked about the mushroom trip before here too. And it stemmed from that. It stemmed from us searching for something that was different and searching for a better way of living. What things about ourselves do we not know? How are we more powerful than we've thought before? And not powerful in an aggressive way. The biggest power that you can have is love. Love is the thing that overwhelms us in the end. And seeing Brit come out of there and her being in that relaxed state interested in me so much, because I knew that if Brit could do it, then this is, it's something that's possible for everybody. And this is something that I wanted to explore more. And I thought, well, hell, I've already been doing hypnosis and relaxing people and doing that kind of stuff, at this point for a while. How can we do the exact same things, but do it at home? Like, we don't want to have to come float every single time. That was a great way to get us into the state and to get us to realize that there are other things possibly going on, that maybe you can hear messages. I don't know how much of that is true or not, but I do know what the experience is, and I do know the healing that comes from those experiences. And to me, that's ended up being what Brit was really saying, in that I want to do this for people, is I want to stop seeing people hurt so bad. So it wasn't about winning the lotto or can I predict the next World Series. It was about, how can we help people? How can we figure out a way into which we can access the deep sorrow and grief that people feel and transform it in some way? Like, is there anything that we can possibly do to understand that better?
Oh, it just makes me emotional hearing you even say that, because that's really what it is just seeing people's pain. And, I had no relationship really with my biological father. So it wasn't like I had any tie or connection to him to come talk to me, or I didn't have any expectation. The only thing I really knew of him was from the letters he wrote me from jail. I mean, that was about it. And so it was a really weird feeling for me, but also one of those moments again. And if you think back in your life, you've had those intuitive moments where you just like knew something without a logical explanation why you knew it, and you followed through, or you didn't and you learned a fucking lesson. But on those moments where you follow through and you commit and you take that leap of faith or that risk and it works out, that's when you realize like your intuition is a tool to help guide you along your highest path. And the thing that shuts it down is fear. And that's what I talked about earlier, when so many young children are afraid to access their intuition. We all have this gift. We all have the ability to tap into our feelings and our imagination. Psychic really means to receive information faster. And so when we talk about developing our psychic abilities, what we're doing is we're developing our visualization and our imagination. And if you listen to our hypnosis podcast, we talked about how Chris started down that kind of science-based, like mindfulness path. And I was all about angel numbers and talking to spirit guides. I was just getting into that whole world because of that near-death experience. It caused me to start studying and reading books on psychic abilities and all the metaphysical stuff. And when I overheard that Chris could use hypnosis to develop psychic abilities, I was in. I was hooked. That was it. And we started not only reading books and practicing tools like crystals and pendulums and
anything. You got to exhaust it.
We tried literally all the different things and all the different modalities. And what I have ultimately come to find to be the most effective and the most powerful is being able to access your imagination in deep states of trance. And hypnosis is the best way to get there because it's with words, not like illegal drugs or anything else other than your power within.
So then there are two really big steps to developing your psychic abilities. And how far you go on these two steps is going to be what matters into whether you can do it or not, whether you get benefit from it or not, all that. The first thing is you have got to deal with your own shit. You have got to go through your life and heal whatever wounds you have. Because if you don't, you will bring those with you, and now you'll have greater sensory perception of more negative things. So the first thing to do is go back and heal all those past traumas. Forgive the people you need to forgive. Let go of all those kinds of things. You have to get rid of them in your mind, because you have to be able to make the space that it takes in order for you to get extra messages, in order for you to get other information. And a lot of it is about paying attention. You know, if you've ever seen a person who's really good at reading somebody and they seem almost psychic because they can tell you the next words you're going to say, they can do almost like illusions. But it's because they're paying attention, and they're paying attention to a degree that most people aren't skilled at. So they're getting extra information because they now know what to look for. So the first step is going to be to take care of your own stuff. Go back through and heal all those old wounds, the lovers that have hurt you, the times you've hurt yourself, the mean things that you've said, the friends, the breakups, the divorces, all of it. You have to clear all of that out. You need to make a clean slate, because how are you going to help people while you're wounded? It's going to be harder. The next thing that you want to be able to do is to relax. Brit said it earlier. Fear is the big thing that drives out your intuition. And if you're paying attention, you'll notice that fear brings you into the wrong brainwave state. That's the wrong trance state. In fight or flight mode, do you think your mind has time to give you great information about cool stuff? It's trying to protect you and save your life. So you've put yourself at a disadvantage. If you're fearful of it, or even if you're super excited about it, you won't get it. You won't get it because you're in the wrong mindset. What you have to do is learn to relax. This is one of the reasons why we practice yoga.
Deep breathing.
The definite deep meditation, hypnosis in that same category. Yoga really is meditation when you get down to it. It's all about being able to calm yourself enough to get you into the right, relaxed state of mind so that your imagination can open up and you can begin to see things that have always been there, but that you were never able to pay attention to.
So people ask all the time, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you see it or feel it or what? Like, what's going on? Like, can you explain it? And the cool thing about psychic abilities is there are multiple sensory, abilities, I would say. There's clairaudience, where you can hear, which means clear hearing. It's a French word. There's clairvoyance, which is what I like to tap into the most, which is using your imagination. There's clairsentient, which is about feeling. So people who are extrasensory or empathic, they feel this way. And then it goes on with all the different senses that we have. They're basically just amplified senses. For me, my visualization techniques and my imagination is extremely amplified. Ever since I was a little girl, I always had my own vision for my life, and it was definitely against what my parents wanted. So it took a lot of courage to be able to follow my intuition, to know that the visions that I have for myself and my life and what's possible, and even the ones that I couldn't see at the time, I put my faith and courage and trust in those visions, even at a very young age, even though I had blocked out a lot of the ability through a lot of self-inflicted hate and self-judgment. And also, culture, religion, growing up in Farmersville, Texas, y'all. I mean, come on. So I had to kind of unlearn the fear that other people, like my parents, were trying to put on me that would stop me from following my own visualization, my own vision, my own imagination, my own dreams. Daydreaming is another way that you can develop your psychic abilities. So if you can right now imagine a hot pink elephant on roller skates wearing a tutu, you've just mastered the psychic ability. Obviously, it takes practice to start receiving that information from other people, from past loved ones. And now, listen, I'm with Chris. I was skeptic too. I'm like, what is this? But when I had my own experience of a past loved one come through where I cannot explain that and how it happened, but how real it felt, that's it, man. You just have to have one taste of the magic for you to realize, like, holy shit, this is possible. And I had that happen time and time and time again with all the women that came and sat in my chair at the salon. I couldn't help but start sharing my curiosities, sharing my insight. And obviously you have to practice like anything. It's building a muscle. So I practiced the hell out of my psychic abilities on my hair clients, and they had no idea, but they fucking loved it.
Yeah. I mean, Brit would get these messages, and we've had it happen in the grocery store sometimes. We've had it, it happens all the time. And one of the things that we did early on was, because I didn't know what would work. I didn't know how any of this worked. You can read a lot of books, but some of them lack a lot of substance. And they don't really tell you what really is going on or how to really achieve things or how to go about doing it better. It's vague in general. And I'm not into that. Like, I'm into experimental things that you can reproduce. And so one of the things that I suggested to Brit a lot in really relaxed trance states is just that she would start to perceive new things about people, that she would get messages about them, that she would get insights into their life that wouldn't be ordinary, that they would be special experiences. And, in relaxed states like that, suggestions that you want, you tend to accept. And how powerful the mind is, we're still discovering that. It's just amazing tool. I don't know what all the abilities are. I mean, I am so interested in seeing where other people take this kind of work, because I think we can do things that we don't know we can do. And I think that we're just not taught it, and so we don't practice it, and it's not in our realm of thinking, so we don't turn it into kind of any daily action or habit. We just think, oh, that sounds good, but it's at some part, a lot of us also say inside, but that's not possible for me. We think those things, and it blocks us. Like, that's not the right attitude going into anything. And so watching Brit with her clients, because in the beginning too, I'm still thinking like, this is BS. Like I'm going through the motions. I'm helping Brit everywhere I can. I'm reading every book I can get a hold of. I'm asking people, anyone that I can talk to who's even halfway legitimate, I'm asking them questions about how it works, what they're thinking, all that stuff. Just give me the information. And seeing her tell people details about their life that only they know, like the blue truck or peaches. Hey, can you tell me what this basket of peaches means to you? Oh my God,
that was yoga class. Well, it's always in deep states of relaxation.
Yeah, that's how you pull it out. And so, again, just to reiterate, just to make sure that you hear it again, you have to work through your own shit. You've got to clear that up first. Don't go for the hard skills. Go for the basic things so you can get in a really positive attitude. Because other than that, if you don't do that step first, what you end up doing is developing fantastic powers, if that's what you want to do, mental powers. But you end up using it to hurt people, and you end up using it to hurt yourself too. So big caution to everything. Same with starting a business, same with starting a family, same with having kids, same with getting married, all that stuff. The biggest thing that you can do first before you really start to interact with people a ton, before you really go after everything, is always work on your own stuff. Like, make sure you're just generally happy. And if you're not, figure out what it is that's making you upset, what part of your life that you really want to change, whether it be your health, your finances, who you're spending your time with, whatever, your financial, it doesn't matter. Whatever the thing is, figure that thing out and work on it. And just do diligent work every single day, and then open up that space so that you can relax. It's those two things combined and consistent work that will help you develop these kinds of skills.
You know, if you think about the chakra system and moving that Kundalini energy up from the base of the spine up through each of the chakras, they say, and in my psychic training, they said, you don't want to open the third eye chakra before you open the heart chakra, because of all of the pain that you're going to have to witness and bear in other people's lives. Anytime someone loses a past loved one, for the most part, no one's excited about it. Everyone's feeling pain or grief or sorrow. And so if you haven't healed your heart chakra, like Chris is talking about, then you're not going to be able to handle the craziness of other people's lives and have the compassion and empathy to be able to help lend that supportive, sacred space for their healing in that time if you're still wounded.
Also, if you're a guy and you have a female that's into woo-woo stuff, and you're like, she's crazy, and this is, she's absolutely, you can't even talk about it because she's saging stuff, and she's looking at the tea leaves at the bottom of her tea, she's trying to read tea leaves. What you just saw happen was that I said something, and then Brit said the exact same thing using different words. I talked more from the science perspective because that's what interests me. And Brit talks more of the metaphysical chakras and understanding that system. But this chakra system is the exact same thing as what Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's the same thing. It's being able to describe similar patterns of behavior and similar ways of achieving a greater experience in life. And so a lot of times you're saying the same thing as someone else, but they're using different words, because they attach to things differently. Brit is a lot more emotional than I am. And I am a lot more even-keeled and a lot more sciencey. I won't say, maybe logical is the right word, but I'm a lot more distance approach. She's a lot more like grab it and tackle it kind of approach. And you can appreciate both of them. And what you'll begin to understand if you want to build a fantastic relationship is that you want to find out where your person's strengths are and use them and really coordinate the two of yours together. That emotional side of Brit, the metaphysical side of Brit, the part where she wants to walk up into a grocery store and talk to a lady about her deceased nephew and how much he loves her. You gotta let her do it. You have to. It will bring so much joy to her. It'll bring more. If you just belittle her or say things, you're not going home and having fun. That's exactly what's not going to happen.
And it's not about going up to people who have past loved ones and delivering a message. It could be used in so many different ways. I have found that moms are extremely intuitive. They're given an upgrade, level up, anytime you have a child, exactly what your kid needs, even when they don't have words for it. You just have this feeling or this sense or this knowing, and intuition is knowing beyond logic. So for a lot of the learning in the beginning, Chris couldn't get it. It was beyond his logic. And when he finally opened up to see how these unexplainable things were happening, for example, I had a client come in one time and I kept seeing a visualization of this maroon angel in my mind. And again, I was in practice mode. So I just was like, hey, do you know anything about this maroon angel? I feel like it's a Christmas ornament on the center of your Christmas tree. And she just looked at me like, what the hell? How do you know this? She was like, this ornament represents my mom who passed away. I said, was it the last ornament that you placed on the tree? And she said, yes. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I'm on to something. So I just kept on, and the information kept coming through. And this was the moment for me that I felt like I developed some pretty good confidence and like, oh my God, I am not making this up. And that's the thing you're going to say to yourself. Anytime you have an intuitive psychic thought, your logical brain's going to follow right behind that saying, did I just make this up? So if you ever find yourself thinking you made something up, go back to whatever it was that came through and trust that because it's coming from your intuition. So I allowed myself the courage to continue to share the message, and she was open to receive it. And I said, I also feel like there's a chair that faces a certain area in your house that your mom sits in and watches you decorate and do this. And she's like, I know exactly where you're talking about. I can feel her energy. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, all right, this is weird. I'm like, let's just see what this is about. I'm like, okay, I'm getting this picture of a cream of mushroom soup. I feel like you went into the grocery store to grab, items to make your favorite Christmas recipes, and you were going to make a green bean casserole. And when you got back to the parking lot, your mom reminded you to go back into the store and get the cream of mushroom soup. And by that time, she's fucking crying. And I'm just like crying because I'm like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is crazy. How do I know this? It was like such a weird moment. And they're going to feel weird, and you're going to be in awe, and you're going to be like, how the hell did that just happen? The more you develop these abilities. But it starts small. It starts with, not taking that one direction home because you just have a weird feeling, or not going into the room where you feel bad vibes.
The other part is, Brit's super visual, but I don't see it. Like, that doesn't happen for me that way. It doesn't happen. Obviously, I haven't developed that skill to the same degree that she has. Plus, I don't do hair and do the same kind of artsy, magical things that Brit has.
Well, the psychic said to us when we sat down, when I brought you, because I was like, what the hell just happened? She blew my mind. And I brought Chris, and she looked at us and she goes, you two are like 4 psychics in one. And what I've realized is that we have very different abilities.
Yeah, my ability is just to know things. I don't get an image. I don't see any kind of cream of mushroom. That doesn't happen for me. I don't hear anything, nothing like that. It's just sometimes I know something. It's like I know this is going to happen in a few moments, or I know I need to change lanes driving because a person's going to be blowing through here in like 45 seconds, which it happens. And so I have just learned to continuously trust that. Anytime that I've doubted myself, or anytime that I've had like, I'm not going to pay attention, it's burned me, and burned me in a bad way. It's when I knew that I shouldn't be doing this, or I shouldn't be meeting with this person, or I shouldn't do this business deal. When on some level I knew it, even if I put it on paper and the pros and the cons weighed out perfectly in my favor, there was just something inside where it said, you know what, don't do this. And I did it. It always stung me. Always. And on the opportunities where it told me to go for it, I had that inner feeling. When I say it told me, I'm just saying I had a great feeling inside about something. It's always been right. And so I've learned to very much trust that, and it feels differently. And that's something you have to really pay attention to. When you make a crappy decision in life, and when it just like really sucks, and you're like, start watching what's happening on the internal world when you make decisions. How are you talking to yourself? What is it that you're picturing in your mind? What's really going on inside you as you make a decision? And you'll start to notice that when you make decisions that really work in your favor, you talk to yourself and you imagine things in one way. You also feel a certain way. And then when stuff just, goes to shit, you're also talking to yourself in a certain way and imagining certain things and feeling a certain way. So eventually you'll be able to discern the difference between the two, and you'll be able to do the one that brings about more positive experiences in your life, and you'll know to trust that one way more often.
So besides like rubbing some rosemary on your third eye chakra and putting amethyst crystals up there, one of the things that I really liked that helped me kind of to focus my concentration and really set the intention. Setting an intention is a really powerful act. That's why I do new moon rituals every month, because it's a great way to tap into what do you really want out of this? Like, what do you want to create? And one of the intentions that I would say, or the mantras that I would repeat, is I am profoundly clairvoyant. I said that to myself over and over and over just to allow it. As I mentioned, when we're younger, we turn it off. And so we have to give permission for that information to start coming back in. And so my mantra essentially allowed permission to start receiving that information. Now, when I get in the shower, water is a great conduit for information. So when I get in the shower, I'm totally relaxed. I hear so much information from so many different people. And so I personally set up a boundary before I get in the shower and say, like, this time is for me. No, thank you. Not interested in receiving any messages or information. And sometimes it continues to come through. But if it's really meant to come through and I really need to deliver the message, but it's really cool that it's all about your willpower. It's all about your decision. You have control. So if you're someone who's like, I'm afraid, I don't really want to turn that back on, you turn it back on to the degree that you can handle. You're never given more than what you can't use in the moment. So for example, if you're just starting to activate your intuition, like spirit guides aren't going to appear in the physical form for you just yet. That's a little freaky. But in time, we literally called to our angels and said, if you really are there, if this is a thing, we want to see you in the physical form. And time again, we have had experiences where angels have appeared and delivered us a message that we needed in times of fear.
It's a weird life.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Life. Okay. And so start small and start with trusting little things within yourself. And, you can apply this to intuitive eating, to intuitive business, to intuitive connection so that like how much to engage with someone. Like you can feel it when you walk into an elevator, you walk into the space and immediately like, oh, are we going to connect? Are they super disconnected? Are they angry? And like, you can feel the vibes. And so it starts with just little things like that by noticing those subtle differences.
What's interesting that you mentioned, I hadn't thought of it till just this moment, is that so many, you talked about the shower messages, things come in the shower while you're relaxed. We talked about the float tank. We talked about hypnosis. But the other time where the messages came through that we mentioned is in the salon. And you have to think that too, because in that moment, you are in a creative flow state. You are not thinking. You are doing. You are totally present with your client. You are looking at the hair and you're knowing exactly what you need to do with it. And in a fashion that you've done so many times that it's muscle memory, so you can be totally relaxed. It's not something that's brand new. So whenever you're doing something brand new, it's always difficult the first times. Brit didn't do this immediately. This wasn't something that just immediately started and she was able to do it. It was something that she was interested in, and then she practiced and then noticed while she was relaxed, it started to happen more and more often. So sometimes you might have to find that relaxing outlet for you. Basically, what you're doing is just tying up your conscious mind. How can I do something with my conscious mind that distracts me long enough, like hair or showering or whatever it is for
tarot.
you? Or tarot. Same way. And I think too on the tarot spot, and tarot is something that Brit has done for how many years now?
Like 8 years. The same. The psychic was like, honey, you have the gift, buy some cards. I'm like, I know, but I don't know. Okay, I'm doing it.
And it was weird for me, too, because Brit's like, hey, I'm buying these tarot cards, and I'm going to start reading tarot cards. And again, I just could think of Miss Cleo. So I'm like, Brit's going to be Miss Cleo. I guess is what's going to happen. That's my life is set up where my wife is Miss Cleo. That's going to be the way this stuff's going. And what you come to realize is that because of the nature of what Brit does, outside of this, where she's, leading women empowerment groups and running retreats and doing all the things that she does to help boost women's confidence and help them re-fall in love with themselves, a lot of what has to happen is deep inner transformation. And if you look at tarot cards, it's amazing because if you look from like a perspective on what the mind is and what the hero's journey is and what Carl Jung was talking about with Jungian archetypes, they're all in the cards. And they're all designed so that it's the trials, the tribulations, the challenges that each one of us goes through as we go through these life cycles. And so her doing these cards and her having a deeper understanding of herself and then taking that and applying that deeper understanding to client after client in person and then moving it into an online business where she is able to see so many more people, it is incredible. And I'm so glad that there was never a moment where I wanted to discourage you, even if I wasn't into it, even if, I was like, what is this stuff, man? This is weird. I'm so glad that I always took that stance because, damn, you've helped a lot of people at this point. And the amount of messages you get per day about people being like, you changed my life. It's phenomenal. But it all started with your own healing journey and your own sadness and your own feelings about not having really your biological father, and like dealing with all of that like inner turmoil that really led to shit. I bet other people feel this way too. I got to help them out because I was feeling sucky. It's beautiful to see.
You know what was really crazy? When my mom, of all people, who's super intuitive, but, you know, she like denies it, and, you know, we don't have to get into that. I'm sure you guys have parents. If you're an intuitive, it comes through the line, okay? So, like, usually on the mother's side, the grandmother, like my grandmother, my mom, my great-grandmother, like all of them, they were super intuitive. Like, there's crazy stories. And even on my biological father's side, I've read and learned that my grandmother on that side had ESP. So, like, I come from a very magical line. And my grandmother's from Iceland. Like, it's just, I think it was in the stars for me to be in this role in this lifetime, to use these skills and abilities to help so many people, like you said. And would you imagine that we were here? I thought I was just going to make the world a more beautiful place on the outside, but it turns out I'm doing both inside and outside.
I love it. It's cool. It couldn't be better. And again, it never stems from what you think it's going to. The way the answers find you when you have these kind of life questions is not going to be what you draw up in your head. You know, it's going to be the random friends suggesting random TV shows that make you cry, and then float tank experiences that make you cry more. So it doesn't always show up.
Follow the tears.
Yeah, the answers don't show up in the way we'd always like them to, but they always show up. But we have to be present enough. And what I mean by that is that in these relaxed states we're talking about, we're not thinking. Brit is not thinking in these states. She's not trying to come up with new stuff. She's not rushing. She's not hurrying anywhere. All that's gone. She's just right there in the present moment. And the present moment is always where the miracles will happen. It's always where you will find the joy. It's always where you will find the happiness. All the other things are things we're making up. And those are all just distractions that take us away from the present moment.
My gosh, I'm trying to think of any other crazy stories that... And there's so many. I started writing them down so I could like write a book about all the experiences, but it's like, where to even begin? I remember reading for Alex and him messaging me the next day on Facebook saying, I literally went home and Googled all the like fake psychic techniques and you didn't use any of them. You made like a complete believer out of the ultimate skeptic. It's just so crazy, like how many experiences we've had. It's like undeniable. In the beginning it was like, I don't know, that's kind of weird, but at this point it's so cool to have that experience. And I just want everyone to know that they're not alone. Like your loved ones aren't gone, that they're always there with you and watching you. And I know that sounds weird, and I wasn't religious, and I still am on this curiosity journey, but all I can say is what I've experienced with so many people is undeniable. So even if you're still here listening and you're kind of like, I don't really know, just give yourself permission to have an open mind, and those signs will start showing up. For example, the ultimate skeptic messaged me when he took his almost or soon to be fiance up there, and he was going to propose to her, and he kind of just said to himself, like, I guess I rubbed off on him enough. He like said to his little spirit guides, like, all right, please like show me the right sign, like, is this the right time to do it or whatever. And he said he just felt like he needed to turn around, and turn around. If you heard our mountain story, turn around, and that's always the psychic, that's always the intuitive information, turn the fuck around. Anyway, he turns around and he sees this huge billboard that has like a ring and like some dude proposing, and it says, ask her already. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, just such cool experiences like that. Now, of course, that's not even speaking to the past loved one. And that's what's cool about intuitive information. It's not just always talking to dead people. When I don't even know how I got on this tangent. I was going to tell you about the time when my mom suggested us going to see Teresa Caputo.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. My psychic brain is open right now, and I've got all of these pictures and stories and visualizations. I'm like, I got to tell them all. But obviously, we can't. So I will share this. My mom is an unlikely candidate. Magical line. Okay, I see how we got here. All right, thanks for following along. Okay, so mom says to me one day, we're standing in line at Chipotle. She's like, hey, you're never going to guess who's coming to town on your birthday. I'm like, who? She said, Teresa Caputo. I'm like, what? How do you know that? Why do you even know that? Why are you telling me about that? Because like, you're not into that kind of stuff. And so immediately it was one of those moments where I was like, there it is. Like, gotta do it. So of course it's on my birthday. What are the odds? So Chris and I booked tickets to go see Teresa Caputo, literally 20 minutes away from us on my birthday. What are the odds? So we get to the arena and there's 2,000 people there easily. And I immediately start looking around and my psychic skills and abilities are like, ding, 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 like grandma, aunt, brother, sister, child. Oh my God, it's too much. I don't like it. And so I remember thinking like, okay, I'm out. Like I originally thought like, it's my birthday. My dad should come through and like share a message and like, it'll be amazing. And so my original thought was like, Dad's going to come through on my birthday at Teresa Caputo. Duh. Cause it was not necessarily in the beginning, but it was definitely like towards I'm still like developing the skills, like what's really going on here. But I had enough awareness to know things. And so when we walked in, I realized this is not for me. This is for people who need healing, who can't communicate on their own. And so we were in the very back. So I automatically knew like, we're out, like she's not walking back here. Like, so I just took a step back and opened my heart and kind of poured love into the audience. Like all of these people are here grieving. I mean, talk about a bunch of empaths coming into that room. They would feel the sadness and the pain. And I had poured my love into all the people who shared their stories, and it was miraculous to watch her share these stories and know these things and see people have that healing moment. It's just like, oh, it's so beautiful to me. And at the very end, she had been walking around all over the floor, up in the front. She had never come to the back. She gets up on stage to end her experience, and she looks down at the girl in the front row and she says, "Well, I'm seeing primary colored balloons. Usually that's happy birthday. Your father says happy birthday. Is it your birthday?" And she said, "No, my birthday's in June." And she goes, "Well, that's weird," and then ended the show. And I knew that was for me.
That was really powerful to see. That ending part was powerful, but the level of, I thought we were going to go see kind of a magic show. I mean, maybe that's what I was just hoping in my mind. That, I mean, you know, when you think psychic and stuff, you think this kind of like dazzle me, like show me David Blaine stuff. And instead what I saw was just so many sad people. I mean, the entire arena was chock full of people who had lost their kids in horrendous accidents, and, you know, their brother or their twin or their girlfriend, or they were going to get married that day, but then the person got hit by a car on the way to the thing. And it's just like, I guess I know how I deal with my own sadness, and I know how I've dealt with my own loss, but losing a child has to be one of just like, to anyone who's lost a child, or, you know, to anyone who's lost anybody, like I'm sending out so much love to you right now.
Sparkle
because
magic.
Seeing those people open me up in an empathetic way that I didn't know I could really, I mean, I felt deep that night. It was deep, and there was a lot of tears from a lot of the people, including me. It was very emotional, and I did not go there expecting that or thinking that would happen, but
it was a hell of a birthday party.
it was super intense, and I left there not amazed by what she was doing. It was cool, but, you know, once you see Brit do it, it's the same. But just feeling so much more love to people, because when you pass people on the street, or when they cut you off on the highway, or you forget that there are a lot of people in a lot of pain, and that a lot of times we disregard that. You know, it's easy to get mad at people. It's easy to judge them. It's easy to say things about them, especially behind their back or inside the car or behind a computer. But there are a lot of people out there just in pain, and they're dealing with some stuff that's very difficult. And so it really just taught me for a moment in a deeper way to be empathetic, to be kind to people, because you don't know. You don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know who they've lost. You don't know if the person they hate the most is themselves. You don't know. And so for a lot of people, that is the case. And so just make sure that if you go down this journey and you want to develop your intuitive stuff and all of your abilities, do it all with compassion. And be ready for the swarm of people that will hit you. Because if people figure out that you can do things, and they do, you get attracted to them. The amount of clients that Brit has where it's the anniversary of their person who's passed, especially someone loses a husband, this happens nonstop in the salon.
I remember that one lady, she kept calling to get an appointment. I'm like, I'm booked for months. I'm so sorry. Like, I don't have openings. Like, if I do have one, you'll be the first to call. And that day that she wanted to come in, that person canceled. And literally, she strolled in on time, and she said, the first thing she said when she sat down, today is the 1 year anniversary of my father's passing, and my light came on, my magic genie lamp at the salon. I have this crazy IKEA lamp at the salon that I've had from day one for over a decade, and every time somebody says something profound or something magical or channels something, the light turns on and turns off on its own. And it's been doing that ever since I've been developing my abilities, which has been so crazy on the timing. So the light turned on, and she's like, my dad passed today 1 year ago. And I was like, well, there's a reason why you were able to get in today. Let's talk. And it's crazy. They will find you. I mean, and that's why that's why the typical like psychic in the grocery store, because like shit, there's people and you're out, like it just happens. They just find you. And I mean, I even had a coaching client one time book a discovery call with me, and this was nothing to do with like tarot or psychic readings. She wanted business coaching, and on that discovery call, her mom came through, and I was like, well, I can't not deliver this message, because I had that experience one time where I was afraid to deliver a message because it was in the beginning. I was scared. I didn't know what I was talking about, so I didn't do it, and I remember regretting that moment. And so from then on out, I'm sharing. I don't care if I look like a fool. This is what I'm going to do. And so I shared it with her, and she just looked at me. She goes, I've worked in psychic metaphysical shops for so many years, and I've gone to so many psychics, and no one has ever been able to channel my mother. And all of the information that came through was it was heartbreaking what she had experienced, which now we understand why she never came through, because she was embarrassed to show the image of what her life experience was. But she felt comfortable because, hey, we were both hairstylists. So one of the crazy moments, before we end this, I think one of the crazy moments that I experienced in feeling confident in my skills, because, like with all confidence, even confidence in yourself, 94% of people by age 14 lack confidence. So if you're trying to build confidence in yourself and in your psychic abilities, like that takes work. And so practice makes perfect. And there was this one time we went up to Newport, Rhode Island, and it was random. It was one of those random trips. There was no purpose to go at all. But I saw this gorgeous black and white wallpaper with butterflies that had little pops of rainbow color on it at this cute boutique hotel on Jet Setter. And I had to just, I had to go see it. So we booked this random trip. There was one vegan restaurant in Newport, Rhode Island. And when we sat down, I noticed there was a lady reading tarot cards for someone. And I told Chris, I think I'm supposed to go over there and talk to her. And he looked at me and he said, why? You have a direct connection. You don't need to go talk to her. And I said, I know. I don't want to go talk to her, but I am getting this feeling like I'm supposed to go talk to her. And we proceeded to have lunch, and he's like, well, are you going to do it or not? And I kept battling with I don't want to go over there. And I didn't even care for the vibe either. And that's the thing. Like Chris talked about doing this out of compassion and out of love. There are definitely people out there doing it scammy. And we had just watched Penn and Teller's Bullshit, and the episode was on psychics, and they showed all bunk psychics. And I was frustrated. I was like, what? I mean, I've had life-changing experiences, not only professionally, but personally. And this just makes me sad to see that they wouldn't share the whole story. And so fast forward to lunch, we were sitting down and watching the psychic read the other girl, and I kept hearing this message, you got to go talk to her. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm literally fighting with my own intuitive voice or my spirit guides or whatever you want to call it. So now I'm negotiating with my guides. Like, okay, if you really want me to go talk to her, then show me a sign. Immediately the song She Talks to Angels comes on by the Black Crowes. And I'm like, that's a pretty good sign, but not good enough. What was your take on that whole, me going back and forth, about Should I go talk to her? Should I not?
Anytime you go back and forth to me, it just makes it a no in my head. So I was ready to leave. There was no other thoughts besides like, hey, are we going to go do the next thing now? I was ready to walk out of that restaurant.
Yeah, you really were. And at the end, he was like, okay, so are you going to go talk to her or not? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm supposed to and I don't want to. And I was like, fine, one more sign. Show me a sign. If you really want me to go talk to her, you'll make her talk to me. I was really trying to get out of it. I'm like, I think this is impossible. So Chris was like, are we going or not? I was like, let's go. So we get up, we start walking out, and she's sitting by the front door, and we go. Chris heads out the front door, and she grabs my arm, and she says, I love your tattoos. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, dang it, I'm supposed to sit down. I got to do this. So I sit down, and I said, how much for a reading? And she said, $120. And it was interesting because I said, well, I don't really want to pay that because I just didn't want to be there. I did not know why I was supposed to be doing that. And she's like, well, how much will you pay? $40? I was really trying to get out of it. Like, please, like, I just don't, like, just say no, go away. She was like, okay, sounds good. And so we sit down and her Louis Vuitton's on the table and she's got her sunglasses on, which is a little bit weird to me. And she starts telling me that Chris and I are going to get married one day and have children. And Chris is a graphic designer. And I'm just like, this could not be more wrong. Like, and I was lucky to have that one experience with the very legit psychic in Dallas for my first time so that I was able to experience what a real connection felt like. And so when I was in this experience, I'm like, this is bogus, man. Like, what is happening? Then she pulls some tarot cards out and she starts to read. And before she even gets to the next card, she closes them all up and she said, I'm tired. I had a really late night last night. I just can't read for you anymore. I said, well, that doesn't seem very fair, does it? And she said, no. And I remember getting up and walking away and getting out to where Chris was waiting for me on the sidewalk. And he goes, so how was it? And I just was like, I don't know what the hell that was. That was just bullshit. It was a bunch of bullshit. And then I remember thinking, Penn and Teller's bullshit. I had to experience that. And I asked my guys, what the hell was that about? And I heard the phrase, you had to be the teacher. You had to show her what she was doing wasn't right. And I remember in that moment thinking, wow, this is what it feels like to go to a bogus psychic so that I can understand how some people may feel when they hear the term psychic. That's why we just go ahead and call myself intuitive.
There are so many scammy, con people out there in the world that are always just trying to
Connies.
Trying to manipulate people, do all that. And it's all about that intention. And that's why I said you got to work through your stuff first and really do this as a way to help people, because if you don't do it that way, it will come out. I mean, people will come out and talk about you. I mean, you eventually put off the energy that you really represent. People may not see it the first time, people may not see it the 10th time, but they will see it. It will come out. Just like if you've ever been in a relationship with a person and they seemed absolutely perfect and then turned out to be this crazy ass narcissist down the road, eventually it came out. You got to see their true colors at some part. And so go into stuff like this with an open mind. I'm definitely the skeptic, but open-minded skeptic. Like, I'm always down for trying. I'm always down for seeing. When Brit brought the idea, I wasn't like, oh my God, no, that's terrible. We'll never do that. I was always like, let's try it. Let's see what we can do. Let's discover it. Let's peek into this, see what's behind the hood, see if it's legitimate, see what's going on. And I will tell you from our experience, there's some very legitimate things. There's some things that you can do that definitely are on the fringe of like what we think is possible. But there are also a lot more people out there that don't have any kind of abilities, that haven't practiced stuff, that are just phonies. And you can definitely run into them.
Yeah, so if you want to develop your psychic abilities, start focusing and concentrating your imagination and your visualization techniques to attune them to the things that you do want. Start imagining what you do want. One of my favorite quotes that Chris has ever shared is, worry is living in the future and planning to fail. If you want to use your abilities in a positive way, start visualizing the things that you actually do want and make those pictures bright and vibrant and really feel the feelings when you're imagining them. And that's going to be the first step in activating and developing your clairvoyance. If you love this episode, leave us a review below and tag us over on Instagram at The World by Brit and Hey, It's Carmichael. And if you have any questions, just shoot us a DM and we're happy to answer or share more resources on how you can develop your psychic abilities. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life Podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.